listening to Scribble Talk, a podcast for bid and proposal professionals. My name is Bhaskar Sundram, and with my co-host,
Ashley Case,
we will be sitting down with our industry veterans to share their stories, discuss their career, and learn how to make an impact in the industry.
Today's guest is David Gray. David is a managing director of AMBid, a leading bidding and proposal specialist working with clients in a broad range of sectors across the UK, Ireland, and Europe. David has over 14 years of experience in bids and proposals, leading high-performance bid teams to success on high-value contracts, including those with national government departments, health agencies, and commercial organizations across Europe. David is an accomplished trainer and has delivered bespoke in-house capture and bid training to organizations ranging from startups to multinational organizations. His contribution to the bidding and proposal industry was recognized in 2019 when he was included in APMP's Global 40 Under 40 Award recipients. David also speaks regularly at international conferences and events and is a regular contributor to APMP. David is based in Edinburgh, where he lives an active and busy life with his wife and 2 young children. Welcome, David, to Scribble Talk. Great to have you with us.
Great to be here. Thanks, Ashley.
So, David, I'm sure you know we love to start in the beginning. So we're curious, where were you born? Where did you grow up? And where did you go to school?
Yes, so I was born in Ninewells Hospital in Dundee, which is in the northeast of Scotland, quite close to my family home where I grew up, which was in a small town called Carnoustie, not far from Dundee, again in the northeast of Scotland. Nice little town on the east coast with its own beach and kind of views across the River Tay and the North Sea towards St Andrews. So a really nice place to grow up. Nice family town, and enjoyed growing up there and being on the coast as well. So that's where I was born and grew up till I was 18. I went to school in Carnoustie as well. That was my kind of my upbringing, and for those, some people will probably have heard of Carnoustie. It's quite a famous golfing town, maybe not as famous perhaps as its neighbour across the water in St Andrews, but it's one of the oldest golf courses in the world. So that was a great place to grow up, and obviously like most inhabitants of Carnoustie, played a lot of golf myself, so there's not too much else to do, to be honest.
So you said when you were 18 you went to school. What did you study in school?
So when I was 18 I left Carnoustie and moved to again staying on the east coast of Scotland. I moved up to Aberdeen, which is further north, and I studied at the Aberdeen Business School, which is part of the Robert Gordon University there. So initially I studied my undergraduate degree. I studied corporate communication, which was a business school degree, effectively a blend of kind of business and management studies with things like advertising, PR, marketing, that side of things. So it was my an interesting course for me to do, and actually stood me in very good stead for later life and the career I would go on to follow.
Very cool. So your first job out of university then, was it in the business field or what was your first job?
So out of university, I went on a gap year immediately after university. I had some travel. I had an itch to go traveling, and some traveling I wanted to do. So I spent some time in Australia and in Southeast Asia before returning home a year later. I then moved to Edinburgh, and on the advice of a friend at the time, actually, and that's where I would say I got my first sort of proper job, if you like, my first postgraduate position, and that was with a housing management company at the time, who were delivering some services to local government organisations, local authorities in Scotland and in England. And that was really my first sort of proper postgraduate role, which is what led me then into more of a business development role eventually.
Okay, yeah. So how did you make that transition into more of that business development world then?
Yeah, so I yeah, started working for this housing management company. Initially, they had just won a large contract in Edinburgh, and I was recruited at the time by a man named Andrew Morrison, who is actually the business owner of AMBID, the company I'm now managing director of. So we go back quite a way. This was in 2005. He recruited me to work for the company he was a director of at the time. And at the time, yeah, this contract had just landed and just started, and there was quite a lot of work to be done. He was very clear with me that they were just hiring people based on their skills and abilities, and he said, you know, there's a lot of potential to do various things in the organisation as the contract grows. And yeah, he was right. So I started off in a kind of frontline kind of housing management role, I suppose, learning the service that the company primarily delivered. And then about a year or so later, maybe a year and a half later, an opportunity came up to move into a business development manager post. And I was pretty well placed for that by that point, because I'd had a year and a half of kind of frontline operational experience. So I had a really good understanding of what the company did, how it helped people, what its value was. And it put me in a much better position to then go on to try and promote it and sell it. And of course, because we were primarily targeting contracts with local authorities, local government, and public authorities, there was a lot of bidding and what we call in the UK tendering going on. So that was, yeah, I suppose what took me into bids and proposals initially, which was, I guess, where I wanted to be at that stage, because I'd understood, you know, having completed my degree in corporate communication, I was quite keen to get into a role that allowed me to use the skills I learned around, you know, promoting companies and, yeah, I suppose really communicating at that corporate level, at that strategic level, and helping to grow businesses and help drive them on in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's always exciting when you hit that goal part of, you know, your career development. So did you stay there long? How long were you kind of in that business development role and working with Andrew Morrison before you went on to AMBID?
So it wasn't a kind of a direct step. I was with in that company for 5 years, initially at the start of my career through to 2010. And yeah, in that time I also studied part-time for 2 years between 2008 and 2010, studied for a postgraduate diploma in housing studies, which again was very closely linked to the service and the sector that the role was working on. But yeah, in 2010, I then moved on to work in the same role, really, in a business development manager role for another organisation, another housing organisation in Scotland, which was in the charitable sector. So I worked there for Hanover Scotland for 3 years as a kind of senior manager in the organisation, and the bid lead was responsible for developing some of the services that they took to market, and again more sort of bids and proposals work through that. So yeah, from there I then jumped into the energy sector for a couple of years. So yeah, around about 2014, I'd had the opportunity to join one of the UK's largest energy providers, EDF Energy. So I moved in and worked there for nearly 3 years in a commercial development manager role, which was really, yeah, an exciting post at the time, having worked for smaller organisations, to go and work for, you know, a very large organisation with a UK-wide remit and, you know, I think 15,000 employees. Really good, you know, kind of development for myself to understand how much bigger organisations worked. It was also, you know, for myself, it was great to get back into the private sector. I enjoyed my time at Hanover, but I did miss the kind of the dynamism, if you like, and the cutting edge of, I suppose, of the private sector. It typically just moves a bit faster, a little bit more dynamic. So yeah, I enjoyed getting back into that. And as I say, it's such a yeah, a different way with such a large organisation, which taught me a lot, and yeah, gave me that much more sort of rounded experience of, again, still working in a similar area in bids and proposals, strategic development, looking at commercial relationships and partnerships through targeted bidding and things like that. So yeah, it takes me to AMBID. So yeah, in 2016, I was then approached by Andrew Morrison, the business owner and founder, and he asked me if I would be interested in a director level position with AMBID, moving in, because the organization was bigger and growing, very fast at the time. And he was looking for another senior bid proposal professional that could come in at director level, help him serve more clients and help grow the business and take it forward. So we kind of reunited in that sense in our careers in 2016. So it's been great. And since then, I've had 2 roles with AMBID, initially as bid development director, through to the end of September last year, and then I was again, through a sort of succession plan Andrew and I had agreed previously, I then moved into the managing director role.
So before we dig into a little bit more of your APMP background and a little bit maybe deeper into your career, can you tell us 3 things that not many people know about you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay. So, I guess some people know, but not very many people know that, as well as being the MD of AMBID and a kind of bidding and proposal professional, I'm also the chair of a small Edinburgh-based charity called Dad's Rock. So Dad's Rock does a lot of really excellent work for young and vulnerable parents, particularly dads. They do things like antenatal classes for fathers to be. They also do sleep training and feeding classes for new parents or parents to be. So there's a lot of focus on dads, as the name maybe suggests, as Dad's Rock. But increasingly and more recently, particularly when they've kind of had to, like all of us, they've had to pivot a little bit and look at virtual delivery. They've also been doing a lot more classes for mums and wider families as well. So, and they do a lot of fun stuff as well. There's a lot of events normally when we're sort of not in COVID times. And there's things like hairdressing workshops so that dads can learn how to do, hair for their children, where their children have long hair. Play groups, they do events and trips to, museums, fire stations, things like that. So, yeah, it's a good fun organization that's really based around, helping dads be the best dads they can be, helping families become stronger, and I suppose a blend of fun and real pragmatic and in some cases really essential kind of counselling and support services for young dads. So I'm very proud of my work there as a dad myself. I know it's challenging at the best of times to be a parent, particularly when you're experiencing it for the first time. And but if you're particularly young or you have other challenges in your life, then it can obviously be an extremely challenging time of life. So it's something I'm really proud to be part of, and it's a small but growing team, but it's a great board of trustees, and it's a great staff team as well.
Oh yeah, that sounds like an amazing organization.
Yeah, it's good. It's good fun to be part of, and it's grown out of something quite quite different as well. It was originally set up because, and perhaps Bhaskar can relate to this, but if you ever take your kids out somewhere like a soft play centre, you can sometimes find yourself to be the only dad there, and there's a whole lot of mums there, and you can sometimes feel a little bit marginalised, a little bit out of the out of the clique. So it was set up to try and give some focused services to dads, and as the name suggests as well, there's also a focus on music, which is another kind of passion of mine. So there's a Dad's Rock Academy as well, where they have music tutors who teach young kids again various musical instruments, and they've done a really amazing job with it all recently, trying to deliver these things over Zoom and using video conferencing instead of being able to deliver tutoring face to face. So a really good fun organization, and something I'm very proud of.
That's just one, David.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, it is. You're right. I've two more to go. Okay, so I'll be shorter with the next two because conscious they're long. So yeah, another thing I guess not many people may know. As of last year, I became a youth philanthropy initiative business mentor. So this is a kind of it's known as YPI Scotland, the organisation who facilitate this, but. Effectively, what that meant was over the last 2 years, I mentored 4 high school students at a local high school, Beeslack High School, quite close to me. And these were S3 age students, so sort of third year in high school. I mentored them in basically in pitching. And this was part of a charity pitch competition where they had the opportunity to select a charity that was close to them or meant something to them, and then pitch to a panel of judges to try and win a £3,000 grant for that charity. And yeah, it's one of the most rewarding things I would say I've done, certainly in the last few years. It was really, I suppose, very eye-opening to go in and work with S3 students when you're surrounded by people who work in business and professionals and other professionals in other sectors. You forget that when you have no experience of working and you're in S3, something like pitching or bidding, proposing, you're trying to win work or win an award of some sort is quite an art form. It's quite a skill set that you have to develop. So it was a great journey to go in and act as a business mentor, helping these guys with their pitch. And I was extremely proud that in March of this year they won the pitching competition. So they won £3,000 grant for their charity, which is a local dementia cafe near there. So it's a cafe that provides kind of care and support for sufferers of dementia, but also provides respite for dementia carers. So I was really proud when that happened, and absolutely delighted for them, as I knew it was a charity close to their hearts as well, as a couple of them had grandparents who'd suffered from dementia. So yeah, they were absolutely delighted. So yeah, that would be my second thing that people may not know about me, is my involvement with the Youth Philanthropy Initiative. The third thing, some people may know of this, if people were at the BPC Europe Con back in March, Pippa Birch introduced me with this. This was my interesting fact, but I was once responsible for the current Tottenham Hotspur manager, Jose Mourinho, receiving a 2-match ban and a fine from the Spanish Football Association. And this was because I was watching a football match at the time on television between Barcelona and Real Madrid. And there was a bit of a heated touchline scuffle involving Jose Mourinho. And he basically poked an opposition coach in the eye. And I saw this, but it seemed that none of the commentators had picked it up. So I kind of rewound the feed I was watching and then took a photograph of this eye-poking incident and tweeted it. And it was then subsequently picked up on by a Spanish football blogger and then by the media. And it ended up, this photo was used widely across the world in various online and print reporting of the incident. And ultimately, Jose Mourinho received a fine for it. So a good example of the power of social media in action, but an unlikely consequence of a tweet, I would say.
Oh, wow. What a story.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned APMP a few times, and leveraging their tools and how great they've also supported us during this pandemic time. When did you join APMP as a member?
So it was back in, I think, early 2017. So it was about 3.5 years ago now I joined as a member. Yeah.
Wow. And you mentioned BPC Europe. Do you have any memorable APMP UK or BPC Europe or any other memories of in-person APMP events before the world turned upside down?
Yeah. I mean, my first APMP UK conference in 2018, I thought was amazing. It was as a bid and proposal professional who, like many of us, is kind of quite often surrounded by people who don't really understand what we do, or don't get it. It was very, very, it was almost cathartic, really, to be surrounded by so many people who did get it and did understand it. So from that sense, it just felt like such a real good sense of belonging. Everybody was very, very welcoming, and I didn't know very many people back then in APMPs. I was quite a new member. It was the first UK conference I'd been to, but yeah, that will stand out in my mind as just being kind of feeling so comfortable and being made to feel so welcome by a community of my kind of fellow peers. I'd never really had that before, certainly at that level. And I think, I mentioned, I should also say in 2019 at the APMP UK conference, that was another really proud moment in my career, but also for AMBID, that we were winners of the People Development Award at the APMP UK Awards that year. So of the awards that were available, that was the one I really wanted, because it recognized the commitment we had to our people, to our team, and the fact that we were very committed to developing them and investing in that to not just deliver a business that serves our clients, but also deliver a business which serves our people and actually develops them. So it was lovely to be recognized, and I was very proud to collect that award on the company's behalf. And as you mentioned, BPC Europe was a fantastic event. I was, really, again, very proud to be invited to speak at that, the inaugural BPC Europe. And in fact, that is the last physical face-to-face event I attended. And I have a boarding card from my flight home from Amsterdam on my desk as a little reminder that life will get back to normal at some point. And, we'll all get back out there in a face-to-face way. We just have to kind of see this out and stick with the way we're working for now. But that was a fantastic event. Great again to share international experience as well, and to hear and learn from others from across the world and across Europe and neighbouring countries, which we might not normally necessarily attend conferences in. So it was a really good coming together, and it actually felt more like a global event because there was people there from all over the world, from the States, from the Far East, from Australia, I think, from India. So there was really good global representation at BPC Europe. So another really memorable event, and was really proud to have been invited to speak at that as well. It was great fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It sounds like I missed that one, but I heard so many great stories about people who attended and how well that came off. And it really provides, people from, Australia. It's so much harder to get to, the US, where BPC is normally held, just the international conference. So I'm excited for things to get back to normal and to see BPC Europe continue to grow and give opportunity for, those who can't make it to the US conference, the opportunity to participate in person.
Yeah, definitely. It's a fantastic event, yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your APMP certification journey?
So I initially obviously started at the beginning, as many people do, and looked at the foundation certification, which I gained in 2018, and we, at the time, Andrew and I, Andrew Morrison, the business owner, and I decided we wanted to basically have the full AMBID team trained and certified through APMP. So as a team, we booked some training, and we got straight into it, and we all did our foundation training and achieved our foundation certificates in the same day as a team. And then the very next day, we started our practitioner development or training, if you like, through an introductory course on how to complete what was then the APMP practitioner portfolio. So it was one of these things. We did this, I think, in November 2018, thereabouts. And I remember the trainer saying to us, if you put about a few hours a week into this, you could have this practitioner portfolio sort of knocked on the head by February easily. You just have to work at it, keep going at it, do it in bite-sized chunks. And of course, then it came to, I think, around about May or June the next year, and I hadn't really progressed it. I don't think any of us had really, because we'd just been so busy on the business and working in the business and growing the business and serving clients. And then I was made aware that the practitioner portfolio form of examination was ending, and so we had this kind of deadline to work towards. So like a true bid and proposal professional, I became then very motivated by having a deadline to work towards. And yeah, I basically did, I guess, quite a lot of late nights and long shifts over weekends and things to get it done. But I eventually worked my way through the portfolio, I think, in about 3 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
Got it submitted. I had an idea in my head. I wanted to get it submitted just before I went on holiday, which I think was about 3 days before the last day you could submit it for it to. But another thing I don't like is abortive work. So because I'd started it, even though I was only about 5% of the way through it, I didn't want that 5% to have been wasted time. So I would have rather done the remaining 95% and had it all count for something than write off 5%. So, which is just sort of, that was my approach at the time. So yeah, that was a good, again, a good, I suppose, a good effort in sort of self-discipline and. Working out of hours to get that done. But it was very nice then when I was on holiday to receive an email one morning congratulating me and saying that I'd passed my practitioner certification. So it was a nice day. I think I probably had a celebratory glass of champagne by the pool or something that day.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that was last year, and this year I've been looking at the professional qualification or certification. So we're definitely going to go for that, and already started some of the groundwork on that. But yeah, as you might imagine, this year has kind of tossed out a few new challenges which have had to be focused on. So it's maybe not been as sort of at the forefront of my mind the way I had hoped it might be. But yeah, still hoping to certainly try and get that certification in the next sort of 3 to 6 months anyway, because I do want to really, I suppose, complete the suite. But certainly, I have a lot of respect for people who have the professional certification. There's not so many of them across the world who do, and yeah, it's something I definitely want to achieve.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and it is quite challenging. At least I've found coming up with those metrics. Yeah, so that's what I've found to be the hardest part in completing it, and then also finding time with all that's going on to practice and prepare.
Yeah.
So one more question before we head into kind of our more lighthearted Nutters round, named after Howard Nutt. Can you tell us a little bit about, being a 40 under 40 award winner, and kind of it seems like from that point forward you started to participate more and become a little bit more active in APMP.
Yeah, I suppose that's a fair point. I've not really reflected on it that way, but it's for me again, it was probably certainly one of the proudest moments in my career. Again, like many, to I really do value the APMP as a membership organisation. It is, without doubt, the international community of my peers in what I do. So to be voted and included in a list of 40 global award winners across the world was fantastic, and I just so proud to get that recognition. I think to win any award is always something you're very proud of, but to win an award from your peers and your fellow professionals in your own sector and industry is something really quite humbling. And I think, like many British people and many Scottish people, we sometimes have a habit of playing ourselves down a bit and maybe not believing our own hype and sort of being a bit modest about our own achievements and our own contributions to whatever we do. But it is always nice to have that kind of external perspective, and people actually saying, yeah, we think that what you do matters, and we've recognized that. So yeah, I was very proud to have been included in that cohort. And even now I still look back on the lists of winners that year, and it's, really is a esteemed company. But even this year as well, the years before, when you look back, it's a real roll call of industry professionals who've many of whom have gone on to progress even further and achieve great things since then. So yeah, it was fantastic for me, and yeah, as you rightly say, Ashley, probably maybe opened a few doors for me in terms of engaging at a slightly higher level with APMP and being able to contribute more as a more recognised proposal and bidding professional than perhaps I had been prior to winning that award. So yeah, a real turning point. And yeah, I remember as well, even my personal life, my wife sharing a post about it on social media, and lots of her friends sort of saying, congratulations, oh wow, that's amazing. But what actually is it you do? It was an opportunity for me to educate and inform some people who were not aware of what the bid and proposal community was all about as well, which is always fun.
Absolutely. I feel like so many of us can relate to trying to educate our friends outside of the community, the proposal community, and what exactly we do.
Yeah.
David, let's talk about some of the hobbies and interests, David, because I know great initiatives about Dad's Rock and philanthropy and other stuff. But what do you do in your free time?
Yeah, so I mentioned I've got two young kids. I think you mentioned in the introduction as well. So they obviously keep me occupied quite a bit as well. My son is 8 years old. My daughter is 4. My son's about to turn 8. Sorry, I should say. Shouldn't get his age wrong. That's a bad start. But he's very nearly 8, and my daughter is 4. So yeah, I kind of love spending time with them. Obviously, I work pretty hard in the role I have, and sometimes long hours and things. But I do always try and find a balance and spend time with my family. And yeah, I guess particularly since March, and we've been in this kind of lockdown position for so long, or various iterations of lockdown and restrictions around the virus. Just trying to get outside as much as possible, and it's not always easy or not always super enjoyable in the Scottish weather. But I've taken up running. I've been doing more cycling. I still play football. I play golf. When I'm overseas, I like other things like swimming and scuba diving and things. So, yeah, I suppose there's quite a lot of hobbies and interests I have that I just enjoy. Anything, when I'm not working, I just like to get out of the house and do things. And it's great to be able to do some of those things with my family, like cycling or taking my kids to classes and things like that. But yeah, also just for myself to get that kind of downtime myself, a bit of self-care, and just going and enjoying some hobbies and interests that I like.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. I think you are totally right. When you have kids, your kind of activities tend to revolve around their timetable and other things. But I'm glad that you're making time for yourself as well. Do you play any instruments, David?
I do. I play the guitar. So I something I got into. My dad played the guitar and was in bands when I was growing up, just on an amateur basis, playing sort of wedding bands and things like that. So yeah, he kind of inspired me at a young age, and we always had at any time sort of 4 or 5 guitars lying about the house. But yeah, I play the guitar and enjoy that. I don't maybe have as much time for that as I used to. I used to play in bands myself, and played with my dad a few times as well, and at events and things. But yeah, it's now more for my own amusement. Again, a bit of my own relaxation. Sometimes play for my kids, but sometimes they just shout over me and don't want me to play my stuff. They just want to sing and dance, do other stuff. So, yeah, that keeps me busy as well.
Perfect. So that's brilliant. So let's officially enter the Nutters round, or the rapid random fire questions round. So short questions, short answers, and it's much more generic, and it can go from one direction to the other, David. So let's start with, what's the favorite childhood memory you can remember?
Wow, favorite childhood memory. Oh, that's a really good question. Oh, you put me on the spot there. I don't know. I have my early memories are kind of funny ones. Like I remember falling in a paddling pool and that being, it wasn't really a favorite memory. It just sort of stuck with me. But I think probably my favorite childhood memories are maybe like most around family holidays. We had my family. We used to have quite long holidays because of my dad's working patterns. For a time, he worked offshore, so he had a kind of 2 week on, 2 week off working pattern. Of course, if you take the 2 weeks holiday, you then have a big long time off. So we used to go to Spain for a month and spend a lot of time there in an apartment that my parents had. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was on the island of Menorca, right very close to a beach. I had a swimming pool in the apartment complex. It had some cliffs and things that I used to jump off with my friends. So yeah, I think my favorite childhood memories are probably, in that on those family holidays, and just being young and carefree, and eating good food and having a good time and playing a lot of football and stuff with friends in the sunshine.
Brilliant, brilliant. And if you could travel anywhere else right now, assuming there is no COVID, where would you travel to and why?
If I could travel anywhere else right now, I think maybe I would go to Byron Bay in Australia, on the east coast of Australia. I mentioned earlier I had a gap year after university. I spent some time in the east coast and in Australia, and yeah, a lot of that time was spent on the east coast. But I really enjoyed Byron Bay particularly. It's a very laid back, relaxing town. Great beach. I did some surfing there, and just very different kind of pace of life in Byron Bay. So I would say that either that, or I would go over to Spain and see my parents, maybe surprise them, because they're in Spain currently, and it's been maybe about a month since I've seen them. So I could I'd go over and pay them a surprise. That would be good fun.
Perfect. And every time I come to Edinburgh, people always say, have you done like a late night walk tour or a ghost bus tour or a famous underground ghost tour or something? Do you believe ghosts exist?
I believe ghosts exist. I would say no. I'm quite cynical about the paranormal and these kind of things. So I don't believe in ghosts. I've never actually done any of those ghost tours in Edinburgh, though I have heard they're very good. But it's one of those things, you're often quite reluctant to be a tourist in your own town. So as much as I've enjoyed being a tourist in towns and cities, all across the world, I've never really indulged in too much of that in Edinburgh, because you leave that to the tourists, really, don't you?
Totally agree with you, totally. It's only when my friends come over and tell me, hey, have you done this in London? I'm like, really? I've been living here for like 16 years now. No.
Yeah.
That's great. So outside hobbies, interest, what's the most courageous activity or anything that you've ever done so far?
The most courageous activity, outside of, well, I think probably the cliff jumping I talked about earlier. The apartment that we used to have our family holidays in Spain, I said was kind of on a cliffside, and we used to do quite a lot of cliff jumping, things like that. So as I grew older and grew a bit more, well, I suppose with age you're supposed to get more sensible, but that maybe starts a bit later. So as I got to my teenage years, I would do some fairly big cliff jumps, which looking back were perhaps, I'm not sure if they were courageous or just stupid, but probably jumping off a very high cliff. Or another one that springs to mind is when I was scuba diving in Australia, I went on a 40 meter or 60 meter, I think, wreck dive to the Yolanga or Yongala, I forget how you pronounce it, a shipwreck off the east coast of Australia. And yeah, you felt quite vulnerable being that deep underwater, relying on obviously artificial breathing equipment and everything else. So I was quite proud of myself for having done that and dived at such a deep level. So I guess some people might say that was courageous. At the time, I just thought it was good fun, and it was a relief to get off the boat, which had made me feel quite sick on the way there. So
Totally, totally, David. I mean, like anything water scares me, but I'm glad that you did that. That's amazing. So, if you had to be a teacher of something, what would you teach?
Um, I presume we'll move away from bidding and proposals on that. That would be the obvious thing. But if I had to be a teacher, I think I would either like to teach music or perhaps a language. I think music, I would say. I would like to teach music. I think music can be, very therapeutic for people. If you play an instrument, it can give you some good downtime, and maybe not all people understand that they can play a musical instrument. There's so many of them. So yeah, I think if I was going to be a teacher, languages have always appealed to me, but the key reason I'd want to teach a language is because that would then mean I'd be able to speak another one fluently. So I'd be a bit of a charlatan saying I could teach a language at the moment, because I couldn't. But yeah, music I think I could have a better stab at. So yeah, I would like to teach music and try and bring music into people's lives and help people to learn to play musical instruments.
Definitely, David. When you do decide to do that, I will be your first student, because that would be mine. I think given the choice, that's something that I always wanted to learn as well. So that's great. So if you could compete in an Olympic sport, which sport would you compete and why?
Olympic sport. I think I would have to say the sprinting, the 100-meter sprint, or the 200 meters. I've always thought that was the kind of the highlight of the Olympics for me, was watching the sprint finals and the sort of the greatest sprinters competing. Obviously, more recently, Usain Bolt dominating it, and really, really exciting to have lived through a time where he smashed all the world records that were out there. But I think Michael Johnson before him, I remember watching powering around the sort of the first 100 meters of the 200. So yeah, I think I've also just got into running this year. So I think now I have more of an understanding of how difficult running is, and I can only imagine how difficult it is to get to that highest level in the world. So yeah, for me, if I could compete in an Olympic sport, it would be the sprinting. Also to have the chance to become the fastest person in the world is a pretty big claim to be able to do. So if I could achieve that, that would be nice.
Totally, David. Usain Bolt is my icon. That's great. And so if I ask you, your two children, your boy and a girl, about father, what reference do you think they will give about David?
Wow, that's a great question. I'd like to think first and foremost that they would think I was good fun. I kind of always go out my way to try and have fun with my kids, try and do stuff that's fun for them. Obviously all of life can't be fun, and you have to kind of teach them lessons sometimes that are more behavioral or less fun, to make sure they understand, how you live and how you behave and how you treat other people and things. But yeah, I try and have a lot of fun with them, and and spend the time I have, away from work, just engaging with them and sharing experiences with them. So yeah, I think I would hope first and foremost, if they were asked what they thought about me, they would say I was good fun. That would make me very proud.
Perfect. That's it. So if you are arrested with no explanation, what would your friends and family assume you had done?
Oh, I have no idea. Oh, what would they assume I have done? I don't know. I guess perhaps under current circumstances, because a lot of my family and friends know that I like to travel, they might assume I've traveled somewhere against the rules, given the current situation. But no, I'm not a notorious lawbreaker in any sense. I've never had any problems with the authorities. But yeah, I guess having to give an answer, I would say if you asked my family and friends what they thought is most likely I'd be arrested for right now, they might say that it would be traveling somewhere I wasn't supposed to go, because they know I enjoy traveling.
Perfect. Exactly. So what's one trait you like the most about yourself?
Well, again, that's a hard question to answer, is sort of self-reflecting. I spend a lot of time trying to see things from other people's perspectives. I do, I mentioned this earlier around, empathy and leadership and demonstrating emotional intelligence. I've deliberately kind of, studied these things, been on courses on these elements of leadership. But I think first and foremost, I just, as a human, I like to always try and understand different people's perspectives, and I think that's something I'm kind of proud of as a person. I don't make snap judgments. I do sometimes tend to sit back and think about things and think, why might that person have reacted that way? What's motivated them to do that, rather than just kind of snap back. So I think, taking the time to try and see things from other people's perspectives, it sometimes takes a bit of time to do that, but I think it's a very valuable thing to do. And sometimes that involves listening to them. And, if you're listening, you're learning. So, it's taking opportunities to just, see the world through different people's, different lens and different people's eyes, and understand that what means something to you might not mean something to them, and vice versa. So as a human, as a leader, as a colleague, I always try and do that. And I think that's quite a good trait to have.
So who are the people who have been the most influential in your life and career?
So there's a few people. I think my family, first and foremost. I've mentioned my parents, and I was raised in a really happy and healthy family. My mum and dad were I think great parents, raised me very well, taught me right from wrong. We had fun along the way, and they've been very influential in my certainly in my life, my upbringing, the sort of human I've turned into, the grown up I've turned into. And also in my career as well, I've had good career advice from my parents, and also from my sister. I have an older sister. There's a 9-year gap between us, so she's quite a bit older than me. And sometimes growing up, that felt that we weren't maybe as close as siblings, more close together in age might be, but. The benefit of that was that she had a lot of wisdom and experience, particularly as I got into my teenage years, that she was able to share with me and help me in my life and in my career and my studies. Those people have been influential. I would have to give a call out to my one of my best friends, Ross, who was the sort of the leading driver of me moving from Aberdeen to Edinburgh back in 2006. And sadly, Ross unfortunately passed away a few years after that from cancer at a very young age. I'd been one of my best friends for a long time, since school days. I found everything in Edinburgh. I found my career. I found my wife. We had kids who settled down. So on a kind of a recruitment sense of bringing me to Edinburgh, Ross was very pivotal in that. Career-wise as well, obviously Andrew Morrison, the founder and owner of AMBid, has been a big influence on me. He was in a role working for him where I was first introduced to bidding, and the two of us worked very closely on bids, and I learned a lot from Andrew during that time, and also kept in touch in the intervening years, and then Andrew's brought me back into AMBid, giving me my first role as a director, and then ultimately appointed me managing director of his company. So he's been very influential in my career development. And I also had a mentor at EDF Energy who I'd call out, who was somebody that springs to mind as really influential, a man named Nigel, who really gave me some very good advice when I was kind of looking at my next career move. And it was around, how important your family are as stakeholders in your career, and that you can't just do something that's good for your career and hope that your family just kind of fit in or follow. You have to make sure that they're on board with the decision, that they help you make it, that they're invested in it, and that you kind of all take a decision together. And I hadn't really maybe thought of the kind of close link between family and career in that way until I had that advice from Nigel. So that was heavily influential in my career decision in terms of where I went from EDF.
Perfect. It's amazing how many people you have in your life there, David. You're so blessed, so much abundance in your life.
Yeah, I do feel very fortunate, and yeah, I know that not everybody maybe has that wide support network. So it's yeah, I'm very grateful to have that in my life.
Brilliant, brilliant. So, who's the kindest person you know?
I, another good question. I think I'd probably say my wife here. She's very happy to give away her time, her expertise, and help friends. She's a very supportive friend. She's a primary teacher, so she has a natural affinity with children. She's also a makeup artist, so that's something quite different. But she's a very kind person. She's always happy to lend a hand, volunteer to help friends with things. Sometimes volunteers me to help her friends with things, or to help her friends' partners with things. So yeah, she's someone that's she's a very kind person, doesn't ask for much back, and is just happy to help people. And just again, puts others ahead of herself. And I think that's a good certainly a good trait of kindness in just helping people. So yeah, I would say my wife.
Totally, David. If you have said some other person, I would have asked the same question again. And now you can be assured that this episode will be shared among your wife's friends as well, which is good.
Exactly.
You did well. So, what's one kind or thoughtful thing someone did to you recently, or in the past year, or whatever you could remember of?
Yeah, I think we've seen a load of examples of kindness. Since COVID's happened, people just doing things very thoughtful and kind. To pick out an example, I think it wasn't. I suppose it was for our family, but we had a little bit of bad family news at one point during the lockdown. We weren't allowed to see people. We weren't allowed to go to people's houses or things like that. And one of my wife's friends arranged for a big delivery of flowers and chocolates and things as a way of showing that they were thinking about us. So I think it was particularly under those circumstances, and I should say this person only lives a few doors away from us, so it was somebody who was kind of very close to us geographically, but under the circumstances not very close to us because we weren't able to see them. So I think it was just a thoughtful thing that was very much appreciated, and it meant a lot to us as a family to have understood that somebody cared to that extent to have done that. So that was something that stuck out during what were challenging times, and particularly receiving bad news during challenging times, to have something brighten up your day like that, and particularly for my wife was really nice.
Brilliant. So that's it from me, and we have last final 3 questions from Ashley.
All right, David, it's been so amazing learning a little bit more about you today. We're going to dig back a little bit into your earlier career, and looking back, what's one thing you wish you had known when you began your career?
Okay, so I think, definitely for me, the value of experience. So, and particularly the experience you gain in your early career, and indeed all the way through your career, that counts more generally and usually than your academic studies count. So I think there can maybe be a misconception you have, particularly when you're young, that the degree you have, or the classification even of the degree you have, might determine your career destiny, or even whether you have a degree or not. I think maybe that kind of mentality, or that misconception is maybe drummed into us, maybe by like overzealous careers advisors or principal teachers at high school and things and colleges. But I think I if I'd have known the value of experience right back at the very start of my career, I would have been, I would have been more settled. I've been really lucky and fortunate to have had some great experiences, and as we've talked about, some great mentors and people that have helped support me along the way. But yeah, I think we sometimes in our early careers can maybe be too focused on looking back at, what's my degree or what's my qualifications from school and how do I make that fit a career? What career path does that suit? Rather than just, going for the career you want and building up the experience you need to make that work for you.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's something, if we can realize that earlier on in our careers, it'll set us up for success from the start. So you've mentioned, you've had these great mentors over the years, and they've really, helped to grow you and put you in the right path and really have those leadership skills that you've taken on and continue to pass down to your reports. Over the years, I'm sure you've had some really great advice. What's the best piece of advice that you've received, and who gave that to you?
Okay, so it kind of links back to my previous question, I guess, or my previous answer around university and academic studies. But a great piece of advice that always stands out to me was, again, from my family, but my sister saying to me, I remember having a particularly difficult time trying to work out what I wanted to do for a career when I was, 17 years old and having to use a university course. And I was thinking, right, what career do I want? And then I'll work back from that and figure out what university course will help me get to that career point. But at 17 years old, I think I'd only stopped my paper round, a year before. So it was quite early in life to be thinking about what you want to do for the rest of your life. And my sister's advice at the time was just choose a university course that you think you'll enjoy. She said, you'll have to study it for 4 years. So it'll be much easier if you actually enjoy it. And that's what I did. And she was absolutely right. I kind of got the most out of university because I was really interested in what I was studying. And I did enjoy learning about it. And that made it obviously much easier to study for 4 solid years. And then I came out with that degree and then sort of looked at, right, where am I going to go next? So I think, yeah, that kind of understanding that, you can do it that way. You don't have to say, right, I'm going to be this and then study the course, or whether it's a degree or whether it's an apprenticeship or whether it's vocational work. And you don't necessarily have to pick a degree or pick a career and then work towards it. You can also just go at your own pace, find your own path, or even blaze your own trail. And I think that's particularly important in bids and proposals, because very few bid and proposal professionals have got where they are today by following any intentional career path. Most people have fallen into it and blazed their own trail, got to it in their own unique and different ways. So yeah, I mean, that's been a great piece of advice. And I think had I not listened to that advice and had I chosen a career and worked towards it, it's very unlikely I would have found the career that I'm in now. So that's been a great piece of advice.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it kind of speaks back to something you mentioned earlier, that, having an older sister 9 years apart, she was able to pass down that really great advice and really helped you to end up where you are now. So that's amazing.
Yeah. She'll be pleased to get a shout out too, no doubt.
I am sure she will. So David, what's next for you? You've, achieved so much to date. What are you looking forward to in the future?
A lot. I think, obviously it's been a challenging year. I'm looking forward to seeing how we finish the year. As a business, it's despite the sort of COVID situation, we're finishing the year strongly as we get used to working in a different way. So I'm looking forward to that, and obviously the next year with AMBID, which will be my second in the MD role. So, the organisation has changed a bit to accommodate, as I said, new ways of working. So I'm really excited about launching some new services, working in a different way, maybe working with clients in a different way. And I guess, I always take, the success of the business based on how successful we are for our clients. So if we're helping our clients win new business and we're helping them recover from difficult times, helping them, navigate their way through a recession, then, that'll be fantastic. If they're achieving success, then that success will reflect well on us as we help everybody kind of bounce back. I mentioned I'm really keen on pursuing the APMP professional certification, so that's certainly something in my kind of short to medium term radar. And yeah, on a personal level, I'm going to do my first ever kind of organized race soon. I'm running a 10-kilometer trail route through what's been described to me as a muddy glen, which should be quite fun, and doing that with some friends of ours. The best bit about that is that the finish line is at a brewery. So we get to run a 10K race and finish in a brewery, which would be quite nice. I think going back to bidding, just I suppose the final thing for me on what's next is, I am really keen to do more sort of work, as I mentioned earlier, but the philanthropic initiative, really trying to, I suppose, promote bidding as an intentional career path. As I mentioned, most bidding proposal professionals have ended up in the role, and they'll say, "Oh, I fell into it," or phrases like that are quite common. So I think, if I can do what I can to, carry on engaging with young people at universities, at schools, and making them aware of if they're good at writing, they don't just need to consider a career as either being an author or a journalist, which is what I was told at school. There are more options available to you in terms of what you might do with the written language, and obviously bidding and proposals is a career that's very rewarding and very great fun to be part of. So I want to help try and raise the profile of that as an intentional career path as well.
Wow, lots of exciting things for you on the forefront, David. Excited to see those things.
Yeah, thanks.
Perfect, David. So, David, it's been an amazing conversation with you. So, is there any part of your life or career, or is there anything else that you would like to touch in the final minute or two?
I think just you can't see me right now because we're doing this by audio, but I have a poster on my office wall which my wife bought, which is an old letterpress print designed by a guy called Anthony Burrell, and it simply says, "Work hard and be nice to people." And I think that's one of the biggest lessons life has taught me. You do need to work hard, but you can be nice to people along the way. Nothing comes to you easily, so you kind of get out of things what you put into them. But I think more so than ever this year, we've all learned the value of just being nice to people, and there's no place for nastiness. You can work hard, you can have a successful business, you can do whatever you want with your career and still be nice to people. And I find the more people you're nice to, the more people are nice back to you. So that's something I have on my home office wall, which is a kind of a good reminder for how I like to be in life.
Wow, beautiful, David. I think that's a nice summary of who you are. And,
I hope so.
Exactly, and I'm quite happy to have you in this podcast. I'm sure Ashley will agree as well. So thank you so much, David, for your time. It's been an absolute privilege and honor to have you with us at Scribble Talk. Wish you all the good health and happiness. Convey my regards to Andrew, all your colleagues at AMP, your family, friends, missus, you name it, and continue to inspire bid and proposal community, your dad's rock, your philanthropy, charity. Continue your hobbies and interests. I took a lesson here to be even more nice father, but that'll keep you posted. I'll ask you help in Dad's Rock. But stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, and share kindness as you always do. Thank you so much, David.
Yeah, and thank you. It's been a pleasure to speak to you, Bhaskar and Ashley, and great to have done that. Really had fun. Thanks for having me.
To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Please visit batchuscribble.com/podcast to listen to this episode and check out any of our other previously recorded episodes. If you've enjoyed today's interview, don't forget to subscribe, review, and share the Scribble Talk podcast. We hope you'll check out our next episode where we interview another industry expert and special guest. Until then, it's Ashley Kays,
Bhaskar Sundaram,
signing off.